I was like a really good player.
Just the appreciation of basketball at all levels.
Yeah, I'm a player. I feel like I just gotta get on the court. You know, I feel like if I get the opportunity to get on the court, that's where the name comes from. Everyday guys and the everyday conversations we have.
Welcome to Everyday Guys podcast. Today's episode, we have Coach Kevin Barnes, who is founder of Pro Can Invitational. Been at multiple programs over the years, at the university level, at the prep level, and welcome.
Thank you, Ray. Former co-coach of mine for the London Ramblers when we were both leading Utes. I
was actually thinking about it. I actually pulled up some emails like back in 2012, 2013. And you know what's funny? Remember when we coached the Ramblers?
Yeah.
The person that I was dealing with, I think her name was Danielle.
Danielle Cohen, yeah.
Her is a nephew. I'm actually coaching him right now.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Small world.
Crazy.
Small world.
And I was looking at these emails, and I was looking at how it's been 13 years since then. Like it was like 2011 when I went to Western, and then when I was helping with the men's team, and then obviously you were there.
Yeah.
That's honestly how I got into coaching, was because of you guys, really.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think what I remember from that time, you know, we're talking like we're historians here, but like what I remember from that time was you took the initiative to reach out to our coaching staff. You know, Brad in particular, it was his show. He was making the decisions. I was just an assistant trying to make my way in the game and contribute wherever I could. But you reached out to them with a value. You said, look, I really love to analyze and break down game film.
Mm-hmm.
I do it in my personal time with NBA games. Yeah. I'd love to do this for you guys. And so I think that's an important message. You know, anybody that wants to get into coaching at any level is, how do you bring value to the team and to the group? You know, because a lot of guys, they just want to be the coach. Hey, I want to be the coach, and they have an ego about it, or they have an expectation of what coaching is. And until you get into it, you really don't understand, you know, the real challenging dynamics of being a coach, especially in Canada, where it's a labor of love, not something you really make any money in. But yeah, I really appreciated that you took the initiative to create that opportunity for yourself, not unlike myself. And that's how I got into coaching too.
Yeah, and I think that's such a beautiful thing about coaching and coaches, is that they know going into it, they're not expecting a lot to get from, like, you know, financially, and but they still do it to get their foot into the door because they love doing it. Like, you almost don't see this a lot in other professions nowadays, I feel.
Not at all. It's a completely unique situation. I was talking to a guy the other day that's going to help us out, John Goodwillie. He's a career professional coach. He was with the Raptors for a long time. He was part of their championship run. He's now part of our national senior men's team, does a lot of the scouting, the personnel work, does a lot of the pre-planning for our international periods. And, you know, I'm going to have him come out. He's going to do a Coaching Connect session during the day where we can bring coaches together, be collegial, learn from each other, see how he runs a practice, get a chance to view that, and then chat after with, you know, maybe things I've got with my teams or our club or your team, and get his take on it. And, you know, we're going to pay him a little bit to have him come to kind of offset the cost. And we're not going to charge coaches. And we go back and forth. We come up with a term. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it for that. And then, you know, before we can even finish the conversation, he's like, you know, but I'm going to come 2 hours early because I want to be part of the shoot-arounds. And then I'm actually going to stay like 3 or 4 hours after. And it's like, so this is the Canadian way. It's like, you know, we pay you for your time, but your time's actually 3 times the amount of time you were actually going to spend, because you want to be there. You want to make sure you bring value and contribute to the event. So I've been calling it the Canadian way. Like, you know, we do way more for way less.
Is that good always, or?
I mean, it's good from like a character perspective, from all the warm fuzzy sides of like, you know, being someone that gives back and understanding the big picture.
Yeah.
But it's not good from a business standpoint or from an ability to make coaching a profession,
Right.
which is, you know, very difficult in Canada.
I see that. Like just thinking back to when we were both at Western.
Yeah.
Just for myself though, like I sometimes I don't appreciate the past enough.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously preparing for this podcast and talking to you in a setting like this, it just kind of brought me back to 2011, 12, right? Where I feel like I learned so much thinking back, right?
Yeah.
Because now I'm trying to be a coach. I want to coach basketball. I didn't know if I wanted to do it for a living or whatever, but I knew I wanted to do something with basketball.
Yeah.
And there were so many like different characters on that team as far as the coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, as a young coach, I remember thinking like, just looking at like NBA coaches, like how should I be, like who do I want to almost model my, you know, coaching career off of?
Sure.
And then when I started coaching with you guys, it was like, oh, you can actually take different things away from different people and build like an identity about yourself.
Totally.
You know, and I like thinking back, I just thought like everyone has such different personalities and different like things that they value.
Yeah.
And when you were on that coaching staff, how do you think those, you know, different identities and different personalities kind of meshed, or obviously sometimes didn't mesh?
Sure. Yeah. Look, I mean, the first question I have back to you is, did you figure that out on your own, or did someone tell you that you can learn little pieces from each person you interact with and then build your own coaching identity from that? Was that something you came to on your own, or did you have a mentor or somebody that said to you?
I didn't have a mentor, but I at first, like when I started coaching for the first time, I remember I was like coaching like U10 or U11. Right. And then that's when I'm like, I really like Phil Jackson at the time.
Yeah.
And you know, he's the guy with like Zen, and he doesn't call timeouts when it's
for sure
down by 15 in the first quarter. And
yeah.
And I'm like maybe I should be like him. And I like how cool it looks. But then you can't obviously do that. And when that's not you, right, when that's not a part of who you are, you can't do that, right?
No.
So that's when I was like, maybe I just have to just be myself, but also try to take things away from guys like you and guys like who, you know, coaches, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, like that's super wise of you to get there, and especially at that younger age to get there. I was really lucky. My first real introduction into like coaching as a profession, I went and worked for a place called Camp Wayne in Pennsylvania. And the basketball director at the time was Julie Levine. And, you know, he was a Long Island, New York high school coaching legend. They'd taken some teams to, you know, city finals and won some championships there. And, you know, he told me pretty much right away that, you know, you take things from everybody and you make that your own package. And so I was given the gift of being told that very early in my coaching journey, and I carried that with me. And that's how I kind of became who I am as a coach. You know, there's no discount for experience. You know, you got to go through it to learn, to become the coach you're going to become. And, you know, at that time when I was at Western, I was very young. And just finished playing. You know, that transition from playing to coaching is always challenging for a lot of guys. You know, you hear the old adage that the best players aren't the best coaches. And, you know, because there's so much that's tied up into it with your personal identity and how you're able to communicate with a group. And what you know, the thing that you alluded to at the beginning was, how do all these different people, all these different walks of life, all these different cultures, all these different upbringings, all these different socio-economical backgrounds come together to find purpose in a singular common goal and be able to perform at their best under the most difficult circumstances, right? And that's why I love sports. Look, I'm not coaching right now. All those years I spent at the university level and all the years you at the OSBA at the prep level, like it's a major commitment. It's mid-August to end of March in season. And then there's no such thing as the off season. You take a week,
recruit.
You pretend you're on vacation, you recruit. So it's a year-round thing, right? And you're fully invested. But what I loved about it and what I still love about it, which, you know, whatever I got going on in my personal life, whatever my individual approach is to certain challenges or issues, how my personality reflects what happens to me in life, for 2 hours a day minimum, we're all going to meet at the same spot and we're all going to check our personal stuff at the door, put the team first, and work towards a common goal. And I love that. And that's really what I miss right now is the freedom to immerse yourself in a cause that's outside of me as an individual and my personal preference or personality. Now, when I was 25, I didn't have that perspective.
Right.
It was much harder to understand someone's differing opinion or how they would approach something differently. And that's when criticism comes out. Because you're like, well, I would do it differently, or he doesn't know what he's talking about, or I would never treat a player like that, until you go through all that.
Right.
And you start to understand, you know, and especially, you know, looking back, you know, Brad's been coaching at Western for 26, 27 years now.
Yeah.
And he started as a young person too, after an injury and came into the role. And, you know, he's been able to do it for a long time and had an enormous success there. And yet you still, you find yourself without the same level of experience as him, you question things and you're like, why did we do it this way? Why did we do it that way?
Right.
And then you're a head coach and you realize, oh my God, I wasn't being a very good assistant coach at all.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what I mean when there's no discount for experience. And you're going through it now. Like, think about even the last 5 years since you've kind of become a head coach.
Right.
How much you've learned and changed and adapted and grown through mostly difficult stuff.
Of course.
Not the fun stuff.
Yeah.
The fun stuff's great, but it's all of those sort of other things that are molding you to become, you know, the coach that you are now and are going to continue to become.
Yeah, I remember. So you were 25 when you were.
This is my journey's a little bit mixed up. I was 26, when I was coach at Western.
Yeah.
But I was 21. I was an assistant coach for Bill Crowdis at Fleming College.
Right.
And there were players on the team older than me.
Yeah.
And, you know, think about that dynamic, you know, on the team bus afterwards, you know, or out in the bar or somewhere in town.
Yeah.
You know, guys are older than you, you're running into them out socially. You know, it's an interesting dynamic to try to manage for sure. But yeah, I was 26 when I started at Western. I just finished my undergrad at University of Alberta, played basketball for Augustana Vikings for 4 years, which is the college league, the ACAC, which is a great league. It's a great place to play basketball. You know, I'm sure we could talk more about the levels and the right fit for players. But I had an amazing experience out there. And then, yeah, 26 years old, my first real coaching job is with Brad at Western.
Right.
And I'm a world beater right then. I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? I'm yelling, I'm screaming, man. I'm like, I'm enthused. Like,
I remember thinking like it was so cool that. Do you remember what you did before games?
With the speeches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in that little area.
Yeah, we would huddle up.
You would just kind of go up and just fire them up. I remember thinking that was like so cool. Right, like how people would just listen to you, how a group of guys that just zone into you, and you're like firing them up. In a way, like I remember thinking that was so cool. And then, you know, obviously John was there. I see John like
Matt
I talked to him a lot.
Tweedy.
Yeah. I talked to John like, man, almost once every 2 weeks now about players. He's different. Obviously, Brad's a lot different, and I'm just like, man, like, how did these guys like mesh together? Like, do they even? Yeah, you know.
Well, look, like that's where I'm like forever indebted to Brad. It's because like he let me in. You know, I'll never forget. You know, and there's a connection there too. Like, network's important, but Ryan Barbeau at the time was our point guard, and Ryan's dad Jim was my high school coach.
Oh, okay.
So Brad reached out to Jim and said, like, is this guy a complete knucklehead? Jim vouched for me. I was pretty much a knucklehead then, but Jim got me in there. And, you know, Brad gave me a chance. But he said, I literally remember this. I'm sitting in his office. I'm in like plaid shorts.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I had a puka shell necklace on, but like, you know, I'm not looking like Pat Riley.
Right.
You know, I'm like just some white kid from Belleville that's like sitting there like, hey, I want to work here. And he said, okay, we'll take you on. You can be part of the staff. But I need to ask you a question. I'm like, oh yeah, anything. What do you got? He's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, we're going to pay $0. Like, you don't live here.
Yeah.
You got nothing here. What are you going to do? And I just remember saying like, don't worry about that. I'll figure it out. I'll bartend. I'll sleep in my car. I'll do whatever it takes. You just tell me when practice is. I'll be here for practice. And he was like, okay, all right. Well, welcome aboard. Like, see you later.
Yeah.
And I was so excited when I left there. I got lost trying to leave London. I didn't even know where I was going. I was just like, I was so excited. I was bumming around. I've been driving for like 20 minutes. I'm like, where's the highway? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where I am right now, you know, because that was kind of like a big break for me.
Yeah.
For $0.
That's
To commit all my time there with no job and no place to live.
I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people, right?
100%.
A lot of people that are just like
100%.
not in basketball, it sounds just
It's bonkers.
dumb crazy.
Yes.
But I remember that feeling too. Like that's such an undescribable feeling that like when you're like accepted into something that you're like so passionate about.
Yeah.
You're thinking of so many ways. Oh, like, okay, I email Brad and we have a meeting and he says, okay, you can do it. And then going back home, I'm just like my brains and like so many different ways. Like, what should I do? Like, how do I make this better? Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like, it's such a, I don't know.
And you know, once that initial like excitement subsides, your mind starts racing with like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
How am I going to impact the team? And that's where I find it's harder now. And I give so much credit to Brad for allowing me to do anything. And he had to shut me down a lot because I was eager beaver. Like I was ret to go. Like, you know what I mean? And he had to say, and at the time, I wasn't as resolved as I am. You know, you get sensitive about it.
Right.
You can get your feelings hurt. But it's not about me. And it was him making an informed, experienced decision about what he thought was best for his program.
Right.
But you're so eager to help, you don't really understand the full picture of it.
No.
And when you talk about those pep talks, I think for Brad and for me, he was okay with me doing that. It allowed me to feel more involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really have any impact on game decisions, preparation or anything. And it was something that, you know, was a strength of mine, which is connecting people, bringing people together. So he allowed it to go on, you know, and the guys liked it, you know, and you build relationships. As an assistant coach, you build relationships with your players very differently than you do as a head coach.
Is there any type of story that you can tell where you as an assistant coach really, really disagreed with, you know, decisions or head coach or...
Sure.
Because I asked this question to someone else too on the podcast and they had an interesting answer, but I wanted to kind of hear
Well, you know, that's happened a number of times in my career as an assistant coach. Right. And learning how to be an assistant coach is an important part of any coach's journey, especially in Canada, because there's a higher probability you'll be an assistant coach than you will be a head coach if you want to stay involved. And having great assistant coaches that know how to be an assistant coach and support the head coach in a meaningful way immediately make your team better. That's why you see universities in Canada with full-time lead assistant coaches having more success because they're empowered in a way to do the job. Right? Where schools that don't have that, you get what's left of the person at the end of the day. They've already gone and worked their full-time job and they've come in. You know, when it comes to disagreement, I don't know that there's ever been a situation where, you know, X's and O's have ever been an issue. I've always been less experienced, younger than anybody I've worked for the most part. So there's never this X's and O agreement. It always comes down to philosophy and treatment of others, right? How do we handle it? And that's why it's really challenging because your perspective as an assistant coach is more of a friend. So you build these bonds with these players that the head coach has to make hard decisions on, whether it's playing time, whether it's role definition, whether it's literally being a part of the team or not,
Right.
getting cut or not getting cut. And so it's really hard to distinguish between the two. So I would say for the most part, I would run into challenges with head coaches on how players were being used or how they were being treated.
Right.
Right. And in all my situations, I don't think there's ever been a mistreatment or a maltreatment of a player. I've never had to step in and do that.
Right.
But philosophically, I've been like, why are we not building this guy up a little bit more as opposed to maybe waiting for him to figure it out?
Right.
The old, let's pump tires. And with kids nowadays, you got to pump a lot more tires
Of course.
than you used to. And if you took a militant approach back in the day, which sometimes, we did,
It's needed too.
it's like, we don't coddle guys.
Right.
You got to figure it out. It's sink or swim. And if you can overcome us, then we've prepared you for what you might run into. Whereas, I think I've always been an optimist, and my approach has always tried to be with honey. Let's sweeten it up. Let's build you up. Let's pump your tires. Let's emphasize your strengths.
Right.
Let's not focus on your negatives. And let's try to bring the best version of each other out.
So you had 2 stints as an assistant coach
Yep.
at a U Sport level.
Yep.
Do you think this when you went to the second stint
Yeah.
at University of Waterloo?
Yeah.
Do you think you changed a lot about yourself and just kind of the outlook and perspective of how to be an assistant coach?
100%.
Right.
When I got the job at Western, I knew nothing.
Right.
I was just enthusiastic,
Yeah.
and I was extremely passionate.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously knew something. I had played, I had coached before. I knew how to, what I thought was a way to play the game. I had learned from all the people I'd interacted with. But in comparison to like where Brad was at, or John was at, or Matt was at, they all had way more experience than me.
All right.
But I wanted to be involved so badly, and I'm a super confident person. So I was, trying to interject and be part of that. But I was trying to coach. As an assistant coach, your job's not to coach. Your job is to support the head coach
All right.
and do whatever the head coach requires for his message to be heard clearly and to get everything across. I was doing that part, but I was also trying to coach. And it wasn't my time to coach. It was my time to learn, sit back, and get there. I figured that out over time, but, and Brad helped me with that without really trying to help me with that, like letting me figure it out. And also putting in some boundaries, like,
All right.
you don't need to scream your lungs out all game long. Like maybe be a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. My bad. Those type of things. But by the time I had joined Troy as lead assistant coach,
Yeah.
it was a completely different role. And I had coached as a head coach at Southwest for 5 years prior to that.
All right.
So I was much more prepared to provide feedback to Troy in real time that could actually influence a decision or two that we made in the game. And I also took an offensive role with that group.
All right.
Troy systematically is a defensive savant, knows how to play the game that way. That's the philosophy. I think of myself as an offensive-minded coach. So we were a great pair that way. So I was in a position by then to understand how to properly support Troy, but I was also better prepared to actually provide feedback that could be applied in real time to help us get a basket, or to help us with a matchup, or to help us individually with something they're struggling with in game to make an adjustment.
Right.
Whereas I didn't have that, at Western.
Yeah. I think being a head coach obviously put just different perspectives, right? Like
Yeah.
things you understand the head coach a little bit more, I feel.
Totally.
You try to understand them a little bit more because at the end of the day, like I feel like being a head coach isn't just about coaching basketball.
Yeah.
Like it's also about managing relationships and managing players and what is this guy thinking? What is that guy thinking? Like I think that's what like Z and I did, for example. Like Z, man, he didn't even coach. He would say it himself too. He didn't even coach basketball. Like he would
Right.
just look at players and be like, "Oh, like how are you doing?"
Yeah.
Versus I would do like all the offensive stuff and call out plays and
For sure.
whatever. And there's, I think that's such a it is kind of a beautiful thing to me, because one guy has a certain amount of roles, one guy has a different role, and they have to mesh together. And you would think they're all coaching basketball, but they're not.
Yeah.
You know, they're all, you know, a part of different things, but they're all at the same time they're also on the same team. I don't know. It's hard to explain it.
Yeah.
Like,
but this is what I mean about philosophy.
Yeah.
Right? You're starting to really form your philosophy of coaching.
Yeah.
And what it sounds like to me is that people are the foundation of what you're doing here.
Right.
You're building people. You're not building basketball players. Basketball is the vehicle. Basketball gives us the reason and the framework to build people, but it's people first. Right. And I think that's, you know, for me, that's really aligned with my philosophy too. So it's great to hear that. But at the end of the day, when you talk about the difference between a head coach and assistant coach, that's why the head coaching job's so hard, is because you get to determine that philosophy and that culture, and how successful you are is based on how much buy-in you get from everyone else, your assistant coaches, your manager, your administration, your players, your media, you know, anybody that touches the team in any way. Can you galvanize that group to buy into your philosophy, whatever that philosophy is? And as long as you're all on the same page and you're all on the boat together, you have an opportunity to be successful. And there's no one way to do it. That's the beautiful art of coaching.
Everyone has a different way.
Yeah. You know, that's what's so cool about it.
Let's go back to Southwest.
Yeah. What a time.
Yeah.
What a time.
What a time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I still remember playing against you. Like, back then we coached Z, and I coached boys and girls.
Yeah. You guys were the double dip, the matinee.
yeah.
The double header.
3 p.m. We would do the girls' game, and then 5 p.m. we would do your game.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, we're just spent. I remember. But kind of founding Southwest Academy with Rob.
Yeah.
Who is a great guy.
Definitely.
What was your vision to making a prep program in London?
Yeah.
Was there any type of vision, or was it just like, you know, we have a lot of talent and around this area too. Let's make a high performance program.
Yeah. Well, you know, at this time, this was really new.
Yeah.
It was all starting to bubble, right? Like, and Brad had brought this up to me a year prior, like, you know, hey, why don't you, if we've started a prep team, why don't you run it? You could run the prep team, kind of thing, you know, but we didn't really have a plan behind it. There wasn't really any momentum to it. And then when we parted ways, you know, it was time. It had run its course, and, you know, Brad had come to me and said, you know, I think we got to part ways. It's this, and this, whatever. You know, it was really hard for me at the time. And I was getting married that summer, which was crazy. So we just parted ways. Brad came to the wedding still, and, you know, I appreciated that a lot. But a couple weeks after that, while you're completely lost and thinking, I'm never going to coach again, my world's over, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, you know, Rob reached out and said, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing this. Actually, at the same time, Richard Nurse reached out, and they were opening Rise, TRC. Yeah. And so I went down and interviewed with Richard, and I hadn't talked to Rob for a couple weeks, and they ended up going with a different guy for TRC, Kennel.
Kennel Knight.
Which is fine. And then Rob called me and said, hey, I just talked to Richard. He said they went with a different guy. Do you want to come and start this with me here? And I said, okay, let's do it. Bet. You know, and then from there, it really just was about passion and purpose and trying to create it. We had a really great situation because we were partnered with the Catholic School Board, and our principal at the time was a huge advocate. Like, without her, we wouldn't have been able to do it. And so that first 5 years, while she was in tender there, was amazing. We were really put in a situation to succeed. Obviously, like recruiting, like my first player was Xavier Ochu.
Yeah.
What a dynamo he was, and still is, and played professionally. He actually came through our Pro Can event, and we got him set up. He's got a contract now. But look, man, like that was so crazy because we just had an open tryout. We just had like an ID camp, and we had like 25 guys out come, and like after an hour, we're just pulling guys off to the side, like, hey, like, here's what it looks like. We'd love to have you. Like, we got school starts in September. You got to get registered. You know what I mean? It's like, you live in Milton. Okay, well, you live here now. Like, and we were partnered with a hotel around the corner in year one. Right. And then we transitioned that into a house and grew it up. But like, it literally was like started from nothing. We started that from nothing, for sure.
Times were so different.
Then. And then we had like Ignas Spredzikas and O'Shea Brissett on the doorstep like a month and a half later. Yeah. And we were expected to compete with them. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, well, we hold Iggy to 45. That's good. Okay, good job. Good defense. Good defense.
No, the times are so different. But Xavier Ocho, oh my goodness, like one of the toughest guys to defend. Like, like the fastest guy I've ever seen on the court.
And of course, we spaced it out. We played fast. That's where the coaching side of it comes in. You got to give guys the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think things like back then, I think it was like 2017.
Yeah, 2010 to 2016.
Right. No,
2016 to 2020.
Yeah,
2016 to 21. You're right.
20,
you're right. Yeah,
like right before.
I never was good at math, right?
Yeah, it's I
don't math, so
it's all right. But back then, like the prep game wasn't even that well known. There was
eight teams.
Yeah, Orangeville.
Yeah,
like
Athlete
Bill
Institute.
Crothers, yeah,
Bill Carruthers.
Yeah, they had 2 teams. Yeah, and it wasn't much, but now
it's gone crazy.
It's gone insane.
Yeah.
Insane amount of teams and insane amount of players. And I do think overall it's a good thing because more people are playing basketball, more eyes are onto it. And I do credit a lot of this success in basketball to guys who started prep back in 2016, like the pioneers of
there were guys before that for us that really laid the foundation. Like we were a benefit of that, but like Ro Russell and Tony McIntyre and Terry Upshaw, and Barrett, Rowan Barrett's been involved in that from the beginning, with Rita and all of those other programs that really got it started.
But now you kind of look at it from a little bit of afar, right? Like you're not in prep anymore.
Yeah.
Seeing all these teams, and I'm sure you see some teams that are not supposed to be in prep. It's watered down a lot.
Totally.
What are your thoughts on that? Because back in 2016, everything was competitive.
Yeah. Well, when we founded Southwest, it was extremely important to Rob and I that we adhered to the long-term athlete development model, that we offered a holistic experience to student athletes, that everybody was at the same school and our daily training environment was at a standard that could be comparable to a college or university, so that we were, in fact, putting the time in on a daily basis through all the major quadrants: social, emotional, physical, everything involved in, tactical, individual training, weightlifting, nutrition, time management. Like everything was built into that singular daily training environment. So we were truly providing you with a preparation for what was next. Yeah. What happened as the opportunities expanded and our education system wasn't flexible to include that in their offering, you had people who wanted access to that level of basketball, but didn't have the infrastructure or the setup behind it to deliver the rest of the components that are important for a young person in their overall development. So you could get the schedule set where you could play competitive games, which is what you have now. There are schools or prep programs, as they're titling themselves, that play a similar schedule, but don't offer that holistic experience from a student perspective academically or from a daily training environment perspective. I take it back, like there's always these buzzwords in basketball, but if you remember, like club teams became elite.
Mm.
And when they became, you wanted to be on the elite team.
Yeah, everything
right?
was elite.
And then elite became prep. And then it was like that for a little bit. And now prep is just the next buzzword. So if I open a team up and I call myself prep, immediately I get, attention. I get players. I get ways to operate. But am I truly delivering a holistic student experience? Probably not, except for, I would say, there's still, a handful of
Right.
programs that are doing it like yours. There's people that have access to gyms on a daily basis that have that holistic approach. And those programs, I think, are doing a really great job of bringing the level up for players.
Yeah, and you use the buzzword that I love is prep them to the next level. That's what it's supposed to be.
That's the whole job.
That is prep, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, I feel that our attention has changed to different things, right? Like it's not about prepping them to the next level. It's about send them somewhere really high.
Yeah, you send them, they don't earn it.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
You send them, and even these players, how they talk is like, oh, that coach knows, my AU coach knows so-and-so.
He got me there.
Yeah, he got me there. Like Coach Ray, Coach Kevin, they know this coach from Division I, so I might get there.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not how it's supposed to go.
No.
That is not how it's supposed to go. And our job is to prepare you so when you go to the next level, you don't just sit on the bench. You have a successful career.
Or if you do, you're prepared for that.
Yeah.
You understand that there's 12 people on a roster, and then there's potentially 3 to 7 more who don't have a uniform, who are in and around the program, that are all pushing the envelope to get into the roster at any given time.
You're right.
And you have to fill a role and bring value and bring impact. And in doing that, you also have to separate that from your own personal identity, because you used to be the man and now you're the 10th guy. And can you even handle that as a person?
Yeah, like how do you endure pain? How do you swim out of adversities?
100%.
Like, but I see too many coaches at this level, like, oh, my star player isn't here yet.
Yeah, for sure.
My starters are not even here yet. So can we do a little bit more warm up? I'm like, you're calling them your star players, your starters. You're like designating almost a role to them.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how to go through challenges.
Yeah.
Right? And then when they get to the next level and they get really, they face challenges, they just crumble.
They quit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. Like, one of the biggest indicators to me, if a player has had good coaching or has had a good preparation for the next level, is if they actually survive their years of eligibility. So if you look at Canadian players, for instance, the best option for a Canadian player is to go D1.
Right.
How many of those D1 guys end up back in Canada after a year or two? And then how many of those guys actually go 4 years and finish playing wherever they are?
Right.
And the same for kids who go to U Sports directly. How many players go to U Sports out of high school that don't ever make it 4 or 5 years in a program? They quit after 1 or 2 years, right? It's just really hard. It's such a huge commitment, and they're so competitive within those rosters that if you're not prepared to handle adversity, if you're not well balanced and have good self-awareness about what you're capable of currently and what you're willing to do to get better, to get to where you need to be, it really is a really challenging endeavor to go through as a student varsity athlete in the university level. Because don't forget, as soon as you leave the gym, there's all the fun to be had.
Yeah.
Right at your doorstep.
And I think that's one of the visions and one of the biggest goals that I have running this program is I want them to graduate and tell people that, you know what, this kid, if he's when he's done with basketball, whatever he does, I think he's going to be successful with his life. Like that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
coaching some of these kids. Like, it's not just about basketball and getting somewhere. Like, now, have they learned the important skill set to be successful in their lives? And that's, I mean, I would like to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I fail for sure, but I think that's something that I would like to get done. And kind of thinking back, I think you actually had a lot of impact on my life and on my coaching career. I know it wasn't like a long time,
Yeah.
but I still remember like coaching. It was like U15 London Ramblers, and
Yeah.
like how much you cared about kids, right? And many people ask me, like, how do I become a good coach? How do I become, where you're at and whatever? And I just go, the simple answer is you have to care about kids.
For sure.
And I feel that, I'm not sure if a lot of people at this prep game kind of share the same vision as you or myself. Like, just care about the kids and everything will be taken care of.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great place to start as a coach. I think the challenge is that the game's really emotional, and it can be really enticing as a coach to feel like you're really involved in the game, right? And that's why you see a lot of coaches who could be a really normal dude, once they start coaching a team, be a complete sideshow on the sideline. Or if you mix in a child into that framework, even harder. Now that I have kids, I see it, but I coached for many, many years and didn't have kids.
Right.
So I never understood it. Now I have kids and I'm coaching my kid. I get it. It's much harder to have good perspective and good mindset, but it's more important when your kid's involved to be able to do that and to be able to have that control. And what you care about is important, because a lot of people, when it's going good, my U10 team is 9-0, they care a lot.
Yeah.
They want to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
When their U10 team can't organize themselves at all, can't even sit on the bench quietly, the kid spills the water on the floor, the ref doesn't call the double dribble or the travel, and they lose their mind.
Yeah.
There's a different care level, So I think, look, if you're going to be a coach and you want to try to improve at coaching, you have to be a constant learner. And I believe you need to be open to collaboration with other coaches. Nobody's going to understand you like another coach will, and that's one of the main values I'm trying to impart right now in the basketball community is let's be more collegial.
Right.
It's so easy, and this is the way it's been historically, and I talk to people all the time about this, is like the only people you interact with are the high school coach you had, or the people you went to that college or university with. Like, it's almost like you feel like you have to stay in this pillar where I'm in part of that coaching tree, or I played for this guy so I can be part of that group, or I can help here, where we need to be like more collegial and collective as a group so that, we can provide better coaching for what is undeniably a huge source of basketball talent for the world.
Right.
But we also have to do it for free.
Yeah, that's the tough part.
So it's like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
but I love that. I love the care factor.
What do you think? What do you think is the most important factor in a child's successful basketball career? If there's one thing that the kids must have,
like how their experience will be impacted.
No, more like what is like a vital part of
coaching kids.
Like, what is like a vital part that a child needs to be very successful?
Well, I'll take it from the coaching perspective, and that's take outcome out of the reward system.
All right.
We're not doing this to win.
Yeah.
Winning is the outcome of doing all of these things.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's something.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to focus on the win because anybody who's not educated or experienced in the field is all they care about or all they know about, right? But when you're building people, and it's cliche, the journey, not the destination, one possession at a time, But really changing and redefining your victories and your reward system is the most important part of building people, I think, to be successful and to have transferable skills to something after basketball or outside of basketball.
Yeah, that's something that I talk to our kids about a lot because everything is so result based,
Mhm.
right? And I don't even tell them this is about the process or result. I think to me, it's about who you become in that process, right?
For sure.
It's not about going to the gym every day at 6 a.m. when you don't want to. It's about like building the character to become a person that goes to the gym at 6 a.m. all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And who for?
Yeah.
Like, why? You know, and like that's why I love team sports because it takes it off of the me. And if you succumb to that, if you're willing to be part of a group and you subject yourself to the group in a way that I'll do anything to help the team
Right.
within my own personal pursuit of my goals, you got something that's transformative. It can make you a different person. It can really build you up.
Right. Now I wanna kind of transition to now the pro side, right?
Sure.
I think is very, very different in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like coaching kids at the high school level
Yep.
and, you know, high school players versus pro level when you're now have to make a living. Now you're the founder of ProCan Invitational.
Yeah.
Where did that come about? Like, how did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we segue, this is an important message to coaches. Coach to your level.
Yeah.
Always challenge the kids to be a level ahead of where they are,
Right.
but don't coach 10-year-olds like they're pros.
Yeah.
Just give it up, bro.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares. Like you don't have, it's not serious. It's
Yeah.
about development. But yeah, so the Pro Canadian Invitational, you know, was really born out of my experiences as a youth sport coach.
Mhm.
And it happened to be, we founded this at the back end of COVID, right? When everything was shut down and then all of a sudden there was a double cohort because people were granted eligibility. And so you had players that had graduated their academic program. They could technically go back and play university, or they just had to start their life. And there was no support for anyone who might want to continue pursuing basketball as either a profession or a way to just continue growing and playing competitively and maybe travel and have some life experience.
Yeah.
And I thought back to myself, I'm like, all these guys that we coached over the years, even at Western, like every time a guy would be in his senior year or getting close to graduating, we'd be like, what's up, man? What are you going to do? Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I'm going to play pro.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, that's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
do you have an agent? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, did you talk to a coach or a GM or like, did somebody contact you and say they had an opportunity for you? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're going to play? How are you going to go play pro?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, coach, man, I averaged 14 in the OUA.
Yeah.
14 and 6, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And I realized, think of all the stuff you do for your guys here at Polaris Prep
Yeah.
to help them earn a scholarship.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that for our players that age out of university. And guess what? They're 22 now,
Right.
23 years old. You're not even at your physical potential, your mental potential, or anywhere near what you could be as a basketball player
Still
at 23.
very young. Yeah.
You're done. In the history of Canada, it's like, you're done. Get a job, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's over. So I wanted to find a way to support those players. And I thought there was a big gap in the NBA and every other subsequent professional opportunity below that.
Right.
Of course, at the time, you know, we are starting to like really impart the global game by our NBA players. But there's so many guys scattered around the world playing at various professional levels. So how do we help guys that want to get an entry-level opportunity? How do we become an entry point to professional basketball for Canadian players and coaches? And that was the whole philosophy and value system we started the program on. And the first year, we invited 32 players.
Yeah.
And we were like, you know, if one of these guys gets a deal, what a success this would be. And, you know, sort of the marquee guy that ended up coming was Prince Odoro.
Yeah.
And Prince at the time had gone and bounced around D1 a little bit, but had kind of fallen off the radar of
Right.
everyone. He'd been written off, so to speak. And he was a great player.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in, he had size, he was noticed. Guys were like, oh, okay, took on it. And he went through the event. He had a great showing, and CEBL teams and local domestic teams took notice.
Right.
And, he got an opportunity. And then he turned that opportunity into a European contract. And now he's been a 5-6 year pro and has worked his way onto our senior men's national team. When we roll out the B or C group, obviously how political it is now with the NBA guys and who shows up. But so it was really successful. And then ultimately of those 32 guys, almost half of them ended up going on to play professionally in one way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Various levels. It's important to understand that. And we don't act as an agent. We run the program as a service to the basketball community. I operate it as a zero profit event. We're covering the cost of everything. We're trying to provide the best possible experience. It's almost like a trade show where anyone from the basketball ecosystem can come together for 2 days, check everything else you're doing, just be about putting a big spotlight on Canada basketball, and get any stakeholders, players, coaches, media, referees, anybody who wants to pursue a professional opportunity in the sport, a chance to meet people who could potentially make that happen.
What's in it for you?
I mean, we clearly can identify my passion for the sport.
Yeah.
And I believe in, being a builder. And I think, ultimately being connected in the way I am to coaches, being able to be a connecting point for coaches, bringing everybody together. It helps me personally to be involved and to be engaged, to learn from others, and to have a platform of sort of contact.
Right.
Because otherwise, not coaching right now, there's not really ways for me to connect. And then 2, it's allowing me to build a global network for myself, potentially as a coach going forward, and for players to go out and get experience in the world and come back to Canada with different viewpoints than if we just stayed in Canada the whole time, to help feed the next players, the next youth, the next group of coaches. Will have a different set of experiences, different perspectives to help us grow the game.
Were you always educated on European basketball and
Nothing.
job opportunity?
No, I knew nothing.
Talking to players, they know nothing.
100%. And that's the thing is I noticed that and I thought, well, how can I put these guys in contact with people who do know?
Yeah.
So I don't claim to be like some guru or a guy that places people.
Yeah.
But I put the people in the building that do know that stuff and are connected in that way. And then, of course, over the past few years, I've built some relationships by running the event. And, we have some clear pathways now to Portugal and to Spain and Germany, and some South American opportunities domestically, like with the CEBL and the BSL. We're connected in a great way. So there is some more support I personally can lend, but it's not about me. It's about the collective. It's about putting a group of people together with all of their different connections into one place so that you can then take advantage of that to learn what's going to be the best pathway for me personally.
Yeah.
Because everybody's journey is different and different players have different, levels of potential that they could reach.
Was there a specific country or a situation where you went like, man, I did not expect that. I did not expect that country to have this good of a basketball situation for players. Is there any specific?
Yeah. Well, just take Portugal, for example. Yeah. It's not a very big country.
I wouldn't have thought they had.
Yeah. And they've got a pretty consistent 3-tier professional league there with CN1, Division 2, and Division 3.
Yeah. And,
we work with a company called DDoS.
Yeah.
They run a summer league to identify players, get them signed. Andre, is an agent. He represents players. And so on both the guys and girls, women and men's side, you can make a reasonable entry-level salary as a basketball player there, and understanding the economy there with no expenses and pocket money.
Right.
You can almost, if it's the right situation, come ahead of where you would be at Canada based on its cost of living to get quote unquote a real job. So yeah, the infrastructure in Portugal was surprising to me. I didn't really realize that would be a place, but it's been a place where, we've got I would say like 15 players
Yeah.
over the past 3 years that have come through that have all been able to play professionally in that country, have a good standard of living. Because that's the other part of this that I, had to really become more aware of is like your basketball situation could be good, but you could be living in a really difficult, cultural environment.
Yeah, for sure.
And you got to be prepared for that,
No, for sure. And
and
like just I've talked to a lot of players in Europe, right, that are playing professionally, and sometimes it's not about, because when I deal with these kids, high school kids, they're all about, I want to play pro.
Yeah.
I want to play pro. I want to do this. I'm like, do you even know like what being a professional basketball player even means? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, how much money you think they're gonna make right away? He's like, oh, at least 100K. I'm like, you guys are delusional.
Totally.
You guys are delusional, and like in Europe, whoever you are, you have to kind of work yourself up.
It's like any job.
Like any job, like work yourself up, and but if you do work yourself up, there is a solid career that you can have as a basketball player, and
sure.
and I think educating these high school kids also is a big part of what I think I should do as a coach.
Yeah.
And I think like initiatives like this Pro Can Invitational and stuff like that, where like you're basically educating more basketball players that there can be a career for you. It might not be right away glamorous.
For sure.
Right? It probably won't be.
For sure.
But there might be a career out of it.
Yeah. And that's the whole purpose of our event, an entry point. A place for you to come and test the waters, be able to meet people that could help you with your journey, but it's your journey.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we talked about when players think, oh, this guy got me this or this guy got me that. It's important who you know. Your network can open doors for you, and the people you associate with will be the level you reach in life, but it's your journey, right? And I think the biggest thing, the message I would say to a young person who says, I want to be a professional basketball player would be, okay, are you willing to do all the stuff that you're doing right now without anybody around to support you? Because that's what happens. You become a pro, and the therapist and the coach and the trainer and the nutritionist and, the schedule that's already built for you at school, all the facilities are available for you. You have a world-class weight room you can go to, all this stuff. Take all that away. Can you still do all that work and prepare yourself to perform? And if you don't, that night, you're cut.
You're right.
You don't get paid and you're sent home.
Cutthroat.
It's very cutthroat, because it's a business.
And one of the also cooler things about, Pro Can Invitational is that I think you're exposing a lot of youth sport players to the pro level as well.
For sure.
And one of the great examples, and I tell our kids all the time, okay, your long-term goal is to play professional basketball. Doesn't mean you have to go to Division I to play basketball. Right.
For sure.
It doesn't mean you have
it can actually be detrimental in some situations.
Right. You have to just go to the right situation. And one of the bigger examples was actually a guy that you coached at Southwest.
Yeah.
Thomas Kennedy.
My guy.
Which I love his dad.
Yeah.
I met him over a few times. And
for sure.
He went to Windsor University. Now he's killing it in Germany.
Yeah.
So explain to the audience and the high school players especially why playing at Division I level doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get to the pro level.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, like Tom's a unique situation because he grew like 8 inches in a year. He was a point guard. He has a dad who's a coach.
Yeah.
A dad who's a player at Windsor and an all-time player.
Yeah.
A sister who's an all-time player. The family was really in on it. And then he went from point guard to 6'8" in, a summer.
Yeah.
So he had the measurables,
right.
and the measurables are a key component. But he also had the character, he also had the work ethic, and he also had the support to do it. I'll never forget, and this is a moment that was raw emotion and something I'm not proud of how I handled, because of the pressure of reloading every year at prep. And Tom came to me in our second year at Southwest. And it was our most difficult year from a team chemistry and from a outcome standpoint. We didn't win very often.
Right.
And we were set to have Tom come back for his 5th year because he was only in grade 12.
Yeah.
And he was getting legitimate D1 offers and attention, especially at the Ivy League, because he's an exceptional student. And, when you take 6'8", 6'9", exceptional student, coach's son, good character, you're giving yourself a real head start on having an opportunity to be good long term. And I remember they called me. It was like July, and I was getting ready to go, and they had made their decision that they were going to go to Windsor. They weren't going to come back for a 5th year. And boy, like crickets. I was dead quiet, no response on the phone. They were in the car. Coach, I'm going to Windsor, not coming back. And it's just like, it felt like 10 minutes, but it was only like, 30 seconds or 40 seconds. But I couldn't muster anything to say, even though it was what's best for him. I was selfish in the moment and thinking, what am I going to do now? I've got 2 months to reload a roster that was completely built around this guy. And so for me, that was a real turning point in my perspective of what I was doing. And we talked about it before about our job at this level is to get you to the next place. And the next place is not up to me to decide.
Right.
It's up to you to decide what's best for you. And I need to celebrate the hell out of that. I need to be so happy and proud that you made that decision and support you in that it's literally a huge win for me that you're in a position to make that choice and go do that. Right. So that was a big perspective changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you probably thought, if he goes to Division I, that's better for him.
Exactly.
You probably thought that too.
Exactly. So it comes from a genuine place,
but
it's not my choice.
Right.
And that was the hard pill for me to swallow, because I came from that culture of, I thought coaches got guys there and it wasn't necessarily them who earned it.
Yeah.
And at the time, bro, like you had the powerhouse AAU programs and then these 8 prep programs.
Yeah.
And there were certain guys involved in each of those programs that were considered the tickets that got you where you go.
Right.
So I was really insecure at that time in my coaching career. So it was challenging, right? But ultimately, Tom goes to his hometown where he feels committed to improving the community. He's got his family there and full support of him, can watch every game. He is a focal point on the team. He's getting year-round development and reps. Coach Oliver at the time, then Coach Chang, both high pedigree coaches in Canada. And, Chris Oliver does basketball immersion. If you're a coach and you're looking for development, it's a great tool. You can follow along, help learn what you need to learn. Coach Chang, been involved with our national program for many years, former Ontario team coach, former Nipissing coach, and now head coach there. So he was put in an environment where he was the guy. And that was part of the development for Tom, was to become the guy and be an alpha male and be a leader in a way that demanded everyone else come with you. If he goes to the States, he's very unlikely going to have that role. He's very unlikely going to have that experiential learning. Would he have overcome and eventually become a key player in year 3 and 4? Of course, because you can't. You can't close a bull down like this guy's a dog. He's the man. He's the best. He's the best guy I've ever coached.
If you're going to be successful, you're going to be successful.
He just all around had it. Yeah. And so he was going to get there. But I think those years, and especially as a younger player in U Sport, having to carry that load was a huge development for him personally as a young man and as a leader. And the skill set continued to develop with it, and the role definition and the acceptance of the role. What am I going to be able to do at the pro level started to really become a factor. Whereas, he was thinking, I've got pretty good guard skills here because I used to be a point guard. Maybe I'm not just a run and rebound and screen and roll and alley-oop and finish and dump offs, which he does at a world-class level now. That role definition started to take shape as well, and how to help his team win. So, he could have went to a bigger program, or he could have went to an Ivy League school, but staying in Canada And being around his support network was the best decision for him and his personal development and his growth. And now, even though he could be an amazing engineer or make more money potentially doing something else, he'll have a long basketball career
I think.
before he decides to transition to the next chapter in his life. And, you know, those guys are going to continue to give back. Like Shannon, his sister, is still coaching. They're, you know, she coaches in Windsor, Riverside Falcons. Jake Kennedy, JK has been running that program for many years. They give back to the community. You know, what an amazing way for him to continue to learn and grow and then go back and give back.
Yeah, and he's
Right?
captain in his second year playing pro.
It's crazy.
It's
but
crazy.
he's the guy, man. Like he's the total package.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it's so important for prep schools to have the holistic approach. Like, and this is why also schools that don't can get a really good basketball player and then get gassed up and think that they're preparing them. They're in a good situation because they have a great role basketball wise.
Yeah.
But academically, they're not in a good spot. Socially, emotionally, they're not in a great spot. From a maturation and a personal development role, they're not in a great spot. Physically, the weight room maybe isn't a priority. Nutrition isn't a priority. Like all of that stuff was already baked in with time.
Right.
It's pre-baked, you know? If you have to add that to players' routines and habits, that's coaching. And you could talk to Z about this. Like, that's why you're not really coaching basketball.
Right.
You got to teach people how to add habits, make things habitual, one step at a time, add something to your approach. How do you become better? How do you gain an advantage? And it's not just 500 shots a day.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I learned at Kings as well as an assistant coach. Even back then, we were all about sending kids to the highest level.
Yeah.
Not maybe not, you know, like the high major. I'm not talking about high major.
At the highest
but-
level, you could get them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when a player wants something else, that's what he wants.
For sure.
And when we were making decisions on some of the players that were graduating here, and they were asking me, you know, what should I do? And
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, like if you've learned anything over the last 3 years, you don't need my help really
Right.
to make a right decision.
Right.
Right? I've always told you these are the values. You have the values that you set for yourself. What's
Yes.
important to you? Not Division One, just because, you know, everyone looks at Division One as if that's the highest thing, highest
Yeah.
achievement that, you know, that you can get. Like, what is your value? What is important to you? And when one of the players that we had chose a youth sport program over a lot of Division One programs a couple of years ago, I was just like, and I think he felt like I'd be disappointed.
Sure. For sure.
And he's like, can we talk? And I don't
Yeah.
know, like, what do you think? And I'm like, listen, based on this conversation, I think you want to go to this youth sport
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
So just do it.
Right.
Like, full support.
Yeah.
This is the decision that you make. You'll live with it forever. You have your values straight. You have your priorities straight. All power to you, man.
Yeah. And look, like, that's the life lesson right there.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose. Can a young person come to someone who's an authority figure, sit down and tell them something they don't want to hear?
Yeah.
That's a life skill, bro. Like, that's amazing if you
Yeah.
can have that situation. But I totally empathize with being on the other side of that. You know, because it's like you get so much tied up in and your own ego and like,
Yeah.
how will I be viewed as a coach? Like, people aren't going to want to come here. People aren't going to think I'm a good coach if my players don't go to the highest level.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of what we talked about earlier about the outcome-based reward system.
Yeah.
That's not why we do this. It can't be.
Yeah. I think the earlier you let it go, the better.
For sure. But look, that's it. You can't just decide to let it go.
Yeah.
You got to go through it.
Right.
You have to experience it. You have to be in that exact moment and see how you react instinctively and then reflect on it and go, oh, even though I might say that I'm doing it this way, I didn't actually respond that way when I was in the moment.
Yeah.
I got to
agree.
do the work on myself to be prepared to lead these men in a better way.
Yeah, and just to look at so many players that I've either trained or seen or talked to, you know, I have a guy that played at the Division I level, like highest level, high major Division I level, and he's in the same league as a guy who went to Dalhousie University,
Totally.
having the similar amount of success.
For
So
sure.
like I think I try to equate sports and basketball to life a lot, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you start, as long as you got a good support system around you, wherever it is, you can still get to a goal that you have,
Yeah.
right?
And look, like you can build a support system too, you know, and I think that's the point is like, if we're always pursuing growth and you don't have that support system, you have to be willing to collaborate. You've got to seek out relationship and mentors and people that can help you. Align yourself with people who are well-intentioned and have a similar outlook on things. You know, learn from people who don't. Be open to that criticism. That I have a hard time with that. Like I get defensive.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to be more open to other thought processes and be more mature at 41 years old. But there's a lot of room for me to grow still, and I struggle with that. It's hard to be criticized, right? Like,
Right.
doesn't feel great, you know. But you gotta have a good mindset, and that's one of the arts of coaching
Mm-hmm.
is being able to deliver constructive criticism or something that someone doesn't want to hear in a way that's received
Right.
and can be functional for that individual, and that your message has to be different with every different person.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
and I think one of the things that I've heard from my dad actually.
Yeah.
Then I talked to him about these moments. I'm like, man, when I get criticized, like it's like embarrassing and this and that.
For
He's like-
sure.
and then he said something that really hit. He's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares
Facts.
about you being embarrassed. You shouldn't feel like nobody cares,
Yeah.
right? And so he's just like, just focus on you, and at the end of the day, it'll work out, right? And that, like, it was a little bit harsh, but I was like, man, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm
For sure.
the center of the world.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't put myself on center. But lastly, I think, man, we had a long conversation. Lastly, just tell the viewers, tell the listeners about ProCan Invitational that's happening soon.
Yeah.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about the core values and
Yeah.
like why and how we started it. It happens the last weekend of April every year. This year it's the 26th and 27th. We're going to be at York University again. You know, anybody who wants to be a part of it, come out, experience it however they see fit. We've got the Coach Connect with John Goodwillie, which is going to happen around noon on the 26th. We've got professional Canadian prospect games taking place all afternoon into the evening on the 26th. And then we've got main event games on the Sunday, 1 o'clock, Canadian professional prospect all-star game, 3 o'clock, women's graduating Canadian prospects, which is a mix of U Sport, NCAA, college players who come together in like an all-star format, but they're playing for lunch money. Like, it's not an all-star game. It's like a competitive game, which I love. Every year the women's game's taking it up a level. Credit to the coaches, credit to the players. And then a 5 o'clock feature game, same format, U Sport, NCAA, college Canadian players who are just graduating, who are looking to take the next step, want to get their name in the professional discussions, get them in that community, and support them in trying to make that transition from college to professional.
What can potential pro players expect to get from this event?
Yeah, so I mean, in the simplest form, they get a stage to show what they can do against, you know, pre-evaluated talent.
Right.
You know, you're not just in there with everybody. It's not just you know, come off the street and play. You have to have gone to college, university, or played professionally, or have some pedigree that would make you a legitimate prospect. So we set that up for them, and then they're going to get some mentorship as well. We have you know, former professional players, current professional coaches, GMs, agents. We have a financial advisor coming in this year to talk about some financial literacy and currencies around the world and how, you know, those are going to equate to those decisions that they make. We've got, you know, food, nutrition we talk about, and then just an overall understanding of like how to take the next step. Then they got to go take the next step themselves. But we're going to, in 2 days, give them an opportunity to be exposed to people who are just like them, players, coaches, who have professional connections, who can help them start making that transition to getting an opportunity.
Well, I think it's amazing. I think it's really brave that you do this.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Obviously, I think you should be really proud of yourself as well to create this platform for players that may not be well educated enough about professional scene. So, but thank you for coming on. Obviously, like I think it brought back a lot of the memories that I had back then, and you know, I probably didn't say this a lot to you, but I think you've been you know, you're a huge part of like my coaching development, and because this is like when I first started.
Yeah.
It was like really fresh. Like I was like a young, like didn't know anything. So just
Well, that's
thinking
great.
back, I think you're a huge part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And congratulations to you and run the program and
Yeah.
continuing to follow your dream. Like, you know, if anything, we'll continue to learn from each other. We'll continue to grow together, but there's no discount for experience. You can't understand it till you go through it, and you're going through it now.
Yeah.
But know that, you know, I'm always here for you. And that's part of the collective approach. Like, you know, coaches need to support other coaches, and we got to grow together and take the level up wherever we can.
All right.
Yes, sir.
you.
Appreciate you, Doc.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. That was good.